Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, Three Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading Three Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm so thrilled to have with us today Christian McNeill. Christian was a lawyer for many years and has been in recovery from alcoholism since 1988. When she discovered the inside-out paradigm in 2011, her life altered phenomenally. A decade of massive change has followed. She's now a coach, consultant, and writer. Her business, Elements of Wellbeing, is based in Glasgow, Scotland. She has just finished writing Addiction, One Cause, One Solution, with American psychotherapist Barbara Sarah Smith. It will be published later this month. Welcome, Christian, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Del. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today.
Wonderful.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. So I hope you're surviving the storms. I know the UK is getting battered a bit right now with all these rains.
I know, but we've been remarkably lucky up here. Usually it's wetter and windier, but we have been. I think we've got off light. So
Yeah. Oh.
Yes, I am surviving and even thriving.
Oh, that's great. That's really good to hear. So you've had a fascinating background before you came across the principles. So why don't you fill us in a little bit of what your life was like prior to the principles?
Yeah. Certainly, I'd love to. And because I knew we were going to be having this conversation, it has been at the front of my mind, just that kind of reflecting where our conversation might go. And also because we've been writing this book about addiction recently. And so if you don't mind, I would just skip back to that bit.
Absolutely. Anywhere you want to start.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, I got sober when I was in my 20s, and until, the last year of my drinking, I think I had no clue that I had a problem with drink, even though I now see that it's been there for years. And I lacked, I really lacked any kind of self-awareness, which may not be a bad thing, I have to say. But that all changed. I reached a kind of rock bottom, as the cliche goes, and it really was for me, a personal crisis. And I got sober, and I, did the whole 12-step thing, and I am incredibly grateful to that, because I feel it saved my life, and I feel that it enables me to go on to become a parent and be able to have children, to be able to be a responsible parent and raise my children. And although in the pre-sobriety phase I'd been functional on one level, I had a responsible job, I was able to turn up for that. I was relatively sort of successful in the professional sphere. At an emotional level, I'd become a kind of, a wreck, really, and that was where my crisis took place, and I think that's an interesting aspect of addiction, that it affects different people in different ways, it plays out in different ways. Anyway, so I got sober, and I was introduced to, for the first time, really, to this idea of a spiritual life, and very much strong encouragement to kind of work on yourself and find a higher power, some kind of spiritual center for your life. And although I'd previously been at least agnostic, there's nothing like sort of a life-threatening crisis to open your mind to something different. And or as the phrase goes in recovery, my best thinking got me here. Yeah. So maybe I need something better than that, or more than that, to sustain me. So I was very open to finding a spiritual core, some kind of higher power. But it sort of eluded me. And it eluded me because there's an encouragement to sort of turn your will and your life over to this higher power, and so that brought with for me certain expectations of if I was going to do that, then things could kind of work out well. And somehow it didn't necessarily go like that. Um, I was, and every time I found myself in difficulties, which was often because there was another thing going on once I got into recovery, and that was that I began to class myself as someone with, with a problem, someone with a mental health issue, someone with an addiction issue, even if I wasn't drinking, that this was a sort of standalone thing. And I saw myself as essentially damaged. And what happened for me was that that kind of played out in my life as if I was.
Oh, wow.
In terms of relationships, and I think just drama and chaos and trouble, and just life was not easy. So I had this thing going on of life isn't really matching up to what my expectation of it should be in recovery. Happy endings, everything working, not easily and straight in a straightforward manner. And this idea that I saw as evidence of my brokenness and my damage, every low mood, every difficulty, and so on. And how I would respond to that was, well, I'm obviously not trying hard enough, so I need to throw something else into the mix. And over the years, I've picked up more and more and more sort of practices and techniques and things that I sort of put into my list of what had to be done on a daily or weekly basis. So that's kind of where I was at in the period prior to coming across the Inside Out understanding these principles that we're referring to here. Yeah. And I had begun to wonder, it had begun to dawn on me that something was wrong with this picture. Because I began to realize that my life had been functional to an extent even before I got on this spiritual journey, and I was now devoting so much time to all these practices that were supposed to make me a better, gentler, more humble person, and yet and to make me more serene and content, and yet we never seemed to get there. And I began to, at some level, question what my beliefs were and what my approach was, and I began to have a series of insights kind of spontaneously. And one of the most important ones for me was an insight that rather than running everything that I do and think and say through a filter of is it sober or is it spiritual, which meant I was always second guessing myself. I just had this insight that I had to just start trusting myself and letting go of that filter altogether. Yeah. And that was very helpful to me, actually. I didn't realise how inhibiting that was. I was never just coming from that inner guide, but that is how I would now describe it. Before that, because everything was going under a microscope.
So this, So this was actually before you came across the principles. You had this awareness, which I always love, because as we always say, the principles are operating whether we know about them or not. So clearly, your wisdom was, you could hear it that this was not working for you. This sort of label of broken and more and more and more spiritual, more self-improvement will get you what you want. I mean, clearly it wasn't working, and you heard that. So sorry to interrupt you. Carry on. So.
Oh no, please. Exactly. But there were others. This was a few years before I ran into the principles. So there were others than that other insights, and as you say, evidence that this is the principles describing how we work. But kind of fast forward to the point that the thing I become most interested in at this point was the NLP, and I found because the focus on the mind, and it was possibly one of the more helpful things that I'd come across. But I could also see its limits, that people doing techniques and it's essentially hypnosis that using it was a bit hit and miss as to what it was effective, but it was the best that I'd sort of come across up until that point in terms of improving state of mind, if you like. And I went on a course which I thought Jamie Smart was running it, and because he was an NLP teacher, I thought that was the emphasis of the course, but actually it was an introduction to the principles.
Oh, wow.
It was a weekend in London, and it just completely changed my life. I mean, it's just like on a sixpence, everything turned.
Wow.
And I think what it gave me was it kind of explained why the bits that had worked in terms of this last 20 years of sort of spiritual teaching and efforting, why what had worked, and why the bits that hadn't worked. And so, for example, I saw for the first time that my feelings were not coming from circumstance. I saw that very, very clearly, and therefore, if I was looking to circumstances, I had the cart before the horse. I was looking in the wrong place for contentment. And I also thought, and this is quite a big thing for me that first weekend, that what was on offer was not a state of constant bliss or ever-increasing serenity, but what was on offer was the ability to sort of cope with life going up and down and up and down and up and down, because the up and down of the moods is following the up and down of thought that just courses through us all the time. And like everything in nature, it comes and goes. It's not a constant. There's this variable and unpredictable to an extent. And there was something huge about that. Where low moods became less important, and I became more detached from them. I suppose more curious. And in that change, because I wasn't fighting myself, I'm fighting my thinking and my moods all the time. Then actually there was less pain, less distress, and more importantly, there was an underlying sense of okayness of that. I saw in that first weekend, I had a very strong sense of who I am is enough. I'm not broken. And this up and down is completely natural, and I'm fine with that. There's nowhere to get to.
That's amazing. I love that expression, turned around on a sixpence. And it's amazing that you were able to get that within a weekend. I mean, some of us struggle for longer trying to get to that place. I think my first year or so, I was still thinking that there was, oh dear, my mind is sped up if I'm in a low mood. And I was still in that, misunderstanding that with this understanding, I would always be functioning at a higher level. And but when I realized that too, that, oh no, it's not about that. It's just about accepting, whatever state of mind you're in at that moment, and knowing that it's a result of your thinking in that moment, and knowing that, as all thoughts do, they pass. And it's that constant flow. So I love that, it's so great to hear that you got that so quickly.
Yes, but having said that, it's interesting because I was just thinking about that too. There definitely was a profound shift in me. But boy, was I rubbish at trying to explain it to anybody.
as we all are.
Yeah. Well, I think some people, more than others, and that really was a challenge. I think for some time to be able to articulate anything that has happened early on. But I did a very important thing happened within just a few weeks of that, which was that my father became ill quite suddenly. He'd obviously been getting ill, but we hadn't really realised exactly what was going on. And he actually died just a few weeks after that first weekend. And it was very unexpected. And what I noticed, and somehow I knew it was because of my understanding of the principles, was that throughout that whole process, that I was being really helped. I found that he lived in Edinburgh, and we had to kind of drive backwards and forwards to there from Glasgow. And my kids, who were teenagers at the time, and it was just a very connecting and spiritual and loving experience. I'm not saying. I mean, obviously, we didn't want him to die, and there was grief and there was loss and all of that stuff too. But it was a quite extraordinary experience, is all I can say. And I knew that somehow what I had learned, and once I'd gone on this weekend, I was just so hungry to hear more. And there weren't very many resources at that point. Mm-hmm. But anything I could find, I could just drink it in. And I knew that this was somehow helping me. And yeah, I suppose it was. I was able to really feel that I was connected with my dad on a spiritual level, and I still feel that since he's gone. I feel just grateful for him, and if I think of him, I just conjure up that love and gratitude.
That's so interesting. We share a very similar situation in that my sister and my mother and my sister-in-law all passed away within an 8-month period, and my mother was the final death in those 3 people, and it was so interesting to me because I'm one of 7 children, and there are 6 of us remaining, and I saw how differently we all responded to my mother's death. Now, in the past, I would have said, well, if your mother dies, of course you're going to feel this way. But it was so interesting for me to see, the separate realities, how we all reacted so differently. And for me, I remember mine being I don't even think I shed a tear. I was so completely at peace and feeling that my mother had just gone from the form to the formless and was with me more present than she could ever be and continues to be. And so I'm just so grateful for this understanding during what probably before, she was my only parent, would have been a challenging time, and has been nothing but, like you described, a beautiful feeling of connection.
Yeah. And an extraordinary gift. I mean, it's a sort of, my father's illness was a surprise and out of the blue, but I would never have anticipated it, as you say. And as you say, having a very different experience from my siblings, and each of them is different from each other. Yes, I am very grateful for that, and also something. I mean, that sounds, I don't want to trivialise it, but there was just it was a very important experience. It was important also, I think, in terms of my kids and I, because I was a single parent, we're very close anyway, but it felt important in my relationship with them, and as though they were going through a sort of life transition or an important life lesson. All of these words are not quite capturing what happened, but it felt that we became even closer and more loving as a result of it.
Yeah, certainly. I know this understanding for me as I think all our relationships are affected, how we show up with other people, ourselves, our children, our parents. It's amazing. So do you, I know that you have this book coming out, which I really want to talk about, The One Cause, One Solution. That sounds amazing. So tell us a little bit about how that book came about.
So again, quick thumbnail sets. Sort of skip forward. So at that point, when my dad died, I was still a lawyer. At the first couple of years in this work, because I knew also that it was going to be a big part of my life. I knew that I'd found what I was looking for in the three principles. And long story short, after a couple of years, I left law and became a coach and trainer and consultant, which is what I've done since. And I hope I gradually became a little better about in terms of articulating what this is about. And one of the things that I do is not unlike this call here, Del, but I do monthly webinars, free webinars with different teachers of the principles or practitioners, and especially people who are not on every other webinar. And one of those people was a woman called Barbara Smith, who's the American psychotherapist, and we just kind of really hit it off, and we made some plans to get together socially, even spend some time together. And in the meantime, we were still connecting on webinars and so on, and she said something about wanting to write a book, and I said, I've actually started something about addiction, and up until that point, I've not. I mean, I do talk about that whole history and the 12-step thing, but it's not been my main focus by any manner. But somehow it was like we both sort of said, why don't we do something together? And it felt just like really as a very natural partnership, because she has that slightly more professional, well, not slightly more, she is a professional psychotherapist and has been for many, many years. And I have more of the sort of user's view, if you like, of recovery. And when we spent some time together and we just sort of brainstormed it and came up with a name and some chapters and kind of just, it was such an effortless experience, and each of us would say, well, I'd quite like to write about that one, and, I'd like to write about that one. So we kind of got through the first draft and then Barbara did a major edit, and then, we both added bits and pieces. And I have the proof copy here.
Wonderful.
That's probably back to front. I have a proof copy here that it's just been published, and it's been such fun, and it's been a really, really enjoyable experience, and very affirming too. I think it's been very very affirming to write about recovery in such positive terms, and now I'm at a point where it's almost 10 years on, and this has been the happiest decade of my life, bar none. And discovering the principles, it's not a recipe for happiness per se, but I think often a much greater degree of contentment, of peace of mind, is a side effect of understanding how we really work.
Absolutely.
For me, there was a lot of dropping away of how it doesn't work. A lot of dropping away of trying to fix things that weren't broken, or trying to squeeze myself into a pretzel, if you like. And that alone, the loss of some of that cognitive load has I think, contributed to being much more content.
Yeah.
And so it was very affirming to just in terms of what each of us know about the principles and how we articulate that, and what each of us know about recovery. And it seems I'm aware that the title can seem very very bold, but essentially what we're saying is that the upstream cause of addiction is looking outside yourself for a source of happiness.
Oh, I think it's a beautiful title. I think it's in a nutshell, that's exactly what it is. Like you said, it's looking outside to cope with stress or anxiety or whatever it is that we're doing, and it's reaching for any addiction. So it is. It's not just alcoholism. And I love the fact that between the two of you, you've got the sort of psychological understanding part of it, but also the experience. I mean, as most people know, in addiction, unless you've been through something, people don't trust you. They want to know that you know how they feel, or at least relatable. So I think it's wonderful that you both came together to do that book together. Now, you're also involved in the up and coming addiction conference? Is that correct? That's
right. Yeah,
yes.
We're both Barbara and I are part of the team supporting Joe Bailey and Amy Johnson, who have put it together, and we're going to be speaking at it as well. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
I think it's the first sort of international conference on addiction from a three principles perspective.
Mm-hmm. And what's your talk on particularly? Because are you all going to? Because I know there's a lot of people speaking at the conference.
I think it's going to be broadly based around the book. It looks like we're going to be sharing a platform with Sandy Cole, who's a great speaker to my mind, and teacher, and I think and she also has this sort of paradigmatic view of the principles, following Keith Blevins and Walter Monroe's teaching, so that they have a particular way into it, which I think makes it quite accessible for many people. Which very much starts with the, that absolute clarity that it's 100% thought in the moment, which is creating our present experience.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So do you have anything else coming up that you're working on or want to share, or let our viewers or listeners hear about?
Do you know, it's funny how life unfolds, because it's been more and more been, I've been drawn back into organisational work here in Glasgow, board work and trainings and things like that. But they're not particularly, it's within other organisations currently. I don't have any. I'm hoping to do some trainings later in the year, but at the moment there's nothing that's so much for other three principles people at the moment. Although my conversations are ongoing, and the next one is in fact with Barbara next week. So that's the main focus right now.
Yeah. Well, I was on your show. When was it? A couple of weeks ago, and
yes,
it was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. You're a wonderful host. So okay. So we're actually coming to the end of our time. Is there anything last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with, or something to share?
I suppose the thing that the absolute fundamental for me always comes back to just that one thing that was life changing for me, and it's been articulated by different people, and I've heard it in different ways over the years. But it always comes back to just that ultimately, behind all of it, behind all the ups and downs, coming back to remember that who I am, who you are, it's just not up for grabs. Your essence is intact, whole and perfect right now, whatever is going on around you.
Yeah.
And there's just something lovely for me about that, just remembering that.
Yeah, I love that too. It really is. I mean, I think so many people, if they unfortunately have incidents in their past that they feel have damaged them, or that they're, are broken, it's just to know that essence of who we are can never, ever be touched, can never be damaged. And it's perfectly whole and healthy and beautiful. So I love that. Thank you so much. It's been lovely having you on the show.
Thank you, lovely to see you
and
again.
You
Thank
too,
you
and
much.
I hope to see you maybe if I make the conference. I'm still on the fence on that one.
That would be great.
Yes.
That would be great. It would be lovely to meet you in person.
Yeah, it would too. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at Adey-Jones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.